Here to tell you about who Muhammad Ali is, please welcome the Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist and perhaps the best interviewer in the world, Roy Firestone.
My first interview ever in television was interviewing Muhammad Ali. This is that picture, 1975. Muhammad was doing a tour through a nursing home in South Beach, Florida. About 200 people in South Beach, Florida, people in their 80s and 90s and above. And one Friday night, I had my camera crew and I followed him. And he walked in this room and there's about 200 of these elderly folks, and he started off with Ali. I'm the greatest, I'm the fastest, can't nobody whoop me, I'm still fast, I'm still pretty, what's my name? A few of the elderly folks went, Muhammad Ali, they didn't know what to say. Then Ali is feeling pretty good, he just beat Joe Frazier, Thriller Manila, He goes into another room. And he sees there's no one in the room, except for one man in a wheelchair. I'll never forget it. This black man in a wheelchair, about 96 years old, sitting by a bay window. True story. Ali takes a knee, and he says to this old man, "Hey, old man, do you know who I am?" No reaction. Ali tries it again. "Hey, old man, what's my name?" Nothing, no reaction. Ali figured, and he was partially right, this man was so old he could barely hear, couldn't think much anymore, couldn't speak, and it was true. He hadn't eaten several weeks, hadn't spoken to anybody. So Ali, somewhat humbled but understanding, walks away. As he's walking away, I swear to you this happened. This old man took this wheelchair and he turned it, and like a light went off in his head, he looked at him and spoke, first haltingly, but then with more conviction. "Hey, hey." "What?" "Hey, I know who you are." Ali turned off to him. "You know who I am?" Old man said, "Yes, I do. You're the champ of the world, man. I waited my whole life to meet the champ. My heart soared with pride because I got to meet my champ. You are the greatest of all time. Can't nobody whoop you." Well, Ali, I saw this, was moved. He looked at this old man and said, in his own way, "You're right. I am the champ. What's my name?" And the old man looked up and said, "Joe Louis." Everybody in the entourage with Ali was embarrassed and humiliated. They wanted to correct the old man. They started to correct, "Hey, old man, don't you know who that is? Not Joe." And Ali stopped him. He stopped him. He said, "What are you doing?" "But he said your name." I know what he said, what I could hear. "So you see that man over there?" I'll never forget this, folks. He said, "He may not be great to you, but he's good to me. And he's good because somewhere in his life he tried to put food on the table for his babies." Everybody deserves dignity. Don't ever take a man's dignity away, and never take a man's dream away. His dream came true tonight. Because in his mind, the only champ that mattered to him was Joe Louis. His dream came true tonight. And you know why? And then he said it. Because tonight, my name is Joe Louis. There it was. There it was in a way I would have never seen in covering sports. Muhammad Ali was telling me what it is to be a champion. A champion's not defined by wins or losses. A champion's not defined by how much money he accrues or the amount of friends he even has. A champion is defined by an ability to uplift another human being. I say to you tonight, folks, uplift somebody. Uplift somebody in your workplace, your communities, every single day, more than ever. Uplift somebody like he uplifted us. And remember, too, the words of someone he knew very well, Arthur Ashe. That which we earn makes us a living, and that which we give makes us a life. And George Washington Carver, a man who preceded him by 50 years, who wrote it this way: how far you all go in your life depends upon your ability to be tender with the young and compassionate with the aged and tolerant of the weak and the strong and patient with the striving. Because someday in your life you will have been all of those things. That's why we love Ali, because he's been all of those things. And he still represents humanity at its very best. Ladies and gentlemen, my great honor to introduce Muhammad and Lonnie Ali.
Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. Doing business in life with a purpose, serving others, and achieving success. That's what our goal is. I'm your host, Steve Ramon, and we created this show for you because we want everyone to learn how to do business, but more importantly, life, to make an impact in the world. I want you to think about how you're going to serve today and what impact you're going to make today. And my guest today, I'm going to start off with, is a childhood hero of mine. Me and my dad used to watch him on HBO and ESPN. So when I started talking to him in the green room today, it really brought joy to me because my dad left this earth in 17, but he's looking down on us and just really excited to be part of this. Hey, Roy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. And I'm sure your dad has a smile on his face somewhere in the galaxy.
Amen.
And I appreciate that. And it's funny, my father was very involved in my career. Some called him a stage door dad, but he loved to see me succeed. And over the years, I'll tell you a very quick story. Well, he got to meet Ted Williams, which was a massive thrill for him. And one time we get to a fundraiser, and it's like 6 o'clock. He was invited. Ted Williams invited him because I was the guest. I was the host of the event. It was in Florida, and my father came in from Florida. Anyway, so at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and all the dinner people are going, "Hey, where is Ted? Where's Bob Feller? We can't find me. Roy, do you know where he is?" I said, "I don't know where he is. I'm looking around. I couldn't see him." I went from room to room to room to room, all these ballrooms, and finally I found this ballroom with my father, Ted Williams, and Bob Feller talking sports from the 30s, and they were having the best time with drinks in their hand. They had a great time. And finally, I said, "Hey, guys, they're opening the doors. We got to get ready for your show, Ted." He goes, "Oh, you tell them to wait. My buddy is your dad, and he and I are talking about Mel Ott and all these great players." And I couldn't believe, my father had such a thrill. One other quick story is, after Mike Tyson knocked out Michael Spinks in 1988, it was one of the quickest knockouts ever, 90 seconds into the first round. Tyson runs out of the ring. He didn't even wait for the official call of that he won the fight. And he's running down the hallway with 3 or 4 of his handlers. And I'm running too, because I want to get to the interview room, because I want to get a good seat, because I want to be in the front row. And he sees me, Tyson does, and he goes, "Oh my God, it's Roy Firestone. Roy Firestone, come over here for a second." And I went, "Oh my God, Mike, congratulations. You just won this big..." "No, I don't want to talk about that. I got to tell you something. I was watching your show with your father about 3 weeks ago, and he knew so much about boxing. I got to tell you, I was very, very impressed. Give him my best," right? Now, my father hated Mike Tyson, right? So I go to a payphone, because we didn't have cell phones in those days. And I woke my father up at 11 o'clock at night. I said, "Dad, you're not going to believe what I just did. I'm at the Mike Tyson fight." "Oh," my father goes, "Oh, that bum. He belongs in jail. He's a creep. He's a terrible human being. I can't stand him. I want nothing to do with him. He's not one of the great ones. That's all I can tell you." I said, "Well, it's too bad you said that, Dad, because he just talked to me as he was walking out of the ring. He said he saw the show that you were on. He thought you were fantastically knowledgeable about boxing, and he wanted you to have his best wishes." So my father, long pause, goes, "Well, I'll say this. He is one of the great champions we've ever had. We have to remember what a great warrior he is." Suddenly, my father was totally into Mike Tyson because my father got a compliment from him.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's
Those were
great.
my
That's how compliments go. And I want to say this, millennials and you young people that may not know Roy. Roy's interviewed Nixon. He's been friends with Ali. Of course, Mike Tyson, him and his dad did a show. He was big on, if you look at ESPN now, he was the face of ESPN for a long time. Just picture that. And why I had Roy on is because he's serving his clients with this very cool one-man show. You want me to do the promo and then you can talk about it?
Sure.
Let's do the promo.
Before we roll it, though, I do want to
Yeah.
say this. For the folks who are watching, who are thinking of maybe doing an event, I'm very flexible. I like to do shows. So depending upon how close it is or my schedule, I will make it work if I can. But I've been doing this show for 30 years, Steve, and it's a mix of sports. It's a mix of entertainment, show business, celebrity impressions, and a lot of storytelling. So we're going to roll it now, and then we'll talk a little about it in a few moments.
Sweet. All right.
As I said, I do different varieties of length. I will do as little as 55 minutes, but for theaters and gated communities and the like, corporations, I can go up to 90 minutes. And it's very meaningful. You may know me for. Yeah, there it is. Let's let it rep and you'll see.
Yeah, we got it pulled up. I just want to share the sound so everybody can hear it and you can hear it. Here we go.
For my decades of interviews at ESPN, my role in Jerry Maguire,
I'm not going to cry, Roy.
or my appearances on Everybody Loves Raymond, Married with Children, The Simpsons, The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, David Letterman. But you may not know me for my live one-man show. We'll have stories, music, celebrity impressions, and more.
Blown away. The best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Phenomenal.
That was amazing.
It was the real deal.
That's right. Everybody from Frank Sinatra,
I gotta say, Frank Sinatra singing YMCA was my favorite of the evenings.
to Smokey Robinson,
I
had no idea that he was this talented. He's extraordinary.
Tony Bennett,
The golden sun will shine for thee.
Oh, he was awesome. I thought he was the funniest guy I've seen in a long time.
Hysterical to the point of bringing you to mad laughter. He does the best imitations I've ever seen.
the Bee Gees,
Lonely days, lonely nights. How come I sing just like a woman?
I've seen Danny dance twice, and I enjoyed Roy Firestone much, much more.
Neil Diamond,
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of the liberty of the icy.
I've known this man for a long time, and I have never known this side of him, and I am blown away. So let's hear it for Roy Firestone.
Now, we expressly format your show to feature your area.
I will be your hero, baby.
For example, here's a piece I performed for a Wounded Warriors fundraiser in Washington, D.C.
And he must always be our hero.
That was so inspirational. He was fabulous, and he was definitely life-changing. Thank you.
But I also inspire your group too. As this feature piece I performed about an autistic child who surprised the world on a basketball court. To top it off, he ended the game with an NBA version 32-foot three-point shot. How do you explain that? Some people say sports is about big players and big money and big events, but in that tiny gym in Rochester, New York, Jason and his teammates and even his opponents swarmed that court and reminded us that sports matters most when the love of the game is matched by the love in the game. That's Jason McElwain's story.
my loss that I have never heard of or met Mr. Firestone before. What a great, great show.
I salute the beauty and memories of sport, like I do in Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me.
Don't let the sun go down on me.
Oh, it was awesome. It was great. You know, he's a once-in-a-lifetime type of entertainer. I love him.
Sun going down on me.
Oh my goodness, this is awesome.
And I'll also uplift you with a funny and then moving tribute to Muhammad Ali and an old man in a rest home.
There it was. There it was in a way I would have never seen in covering sports. Muhammad Ali was telling me what it is to be a champion. A champion's not defined by wins or losses. A champion's not defined by how much money he accrues or the amount of friends he even has. A champion is defined by an ability to uplift another human being.
He made me cry. It was so fantastic. He motivated me, made me feel great. Just a super fantastic presentation. But I do have to go touch up my makeup. Made me cry. He moved me.
Now remember, every show is different. Every show works specifically to fit your group's message. I've performed this show in more than 2,000 venues in the last 20 years. Venues large and small. I love performing this one-of-a-kind show.
I have 33 years of being in this business, but that is without a doubt the best, most dynamic presentation I've ever heard.
To dream the impossible dream.
It's Roy Firestone up close. I hope you'll be part of this unforgettable experience. Thanks for watching.
Roy, that is, I've known you in sports. I've never known the entertainer side singing. That is, I've got tears in my eyes. I'm smiling and laughing. Thank you so much.
You know, one of the things, Steve, about what I did on my TV show was I like to try to get reality into the show. I mean, people's story, the emotion. Maybe in some cases it was tears. Maybe it would be funny stories about growing up. I did that more often than not. I didn't do as much a technical show as much I did as a human show. When I think about this live show that I've been doing, and by the way, for 30 years I've been doing this show now, all over the country, all over the world, really. I want to bring out some of the best moments that I had in sports and also in entertainment, doing show business, impressions of people like Neil Diamond, by the way, whose birthday is today. He's 83. And I just enjoy it so much. I don't think it's a different Roy Firestone. I think it's the same Roy Firestone. I think it's something I've always loved to do, and I was very proud to do it. And I've been doing it. I've opened in Las Vegas for Lou Rawls, and I did work with Loretta Lynn, Michael McDonald of the Doobie Brothers, Jeffrey Osborne, and so many people like it. And I was thrilled to be able to do it and still am, and I'm doing it all over the country. So again, if anybody is interested in my show, just go to royfirestone.com. There's contact information. We'll contact with each other, and maybe we can work something out and come out and do your functions, whatever they might be. And by the way, Steve, let me thank you for letting me plug this too.
Oh, you're very welcome. And like I said, that promo, I listened to it last week when you said it. And just now it's, for us, I'm 62. So I think from 50 to 80, we're like, it hits home. But
yeah,
what you've done though, Roy, is it fits younger people. Some of those people were younger.
Oh yeah, definitely. And not only that, I do a parody, which you don't see in that video. I do a real interesting parody of the Beatles where I replace Paul McCartney on a green screen effect, and I sing on the Ed Sullivan Show with the other Beatles and do all the voices of the Beatles and Ed Sullivan and Rod Serling for the Twilight Zone. So that's always a crowd pleaser too. So I do a lot of different eclectic things on my show. And you know, people who do remember me from all the interviews, and by the way, I'm still doing them, but in different places. I just I did a series of 16 interviews that hasn't aired yet on ESPN called GOATs, Greatest of All Time, and other projects. And I'm just, I love my life, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I want to do some more of it. That's all.
What's your goal with the show for the future?
Well, I just think to inspire people, to connect with people, to make people feel something. Sports is going through a lot of changes. It's very expensive now to go to sporting events. People You'll even see now that TV is going away in some respects. A few weeks ago, NBC would not allow the game to be broadcast on over-the-air TV. It was only on streaming on Peacock. So we're slowly starting to lose our access to sports, and the ticket prices, particularly in Los Angeles, even for baseball, are astronomical. So I want this show to be kind of a love letter to sports with music, celebrities, storytelling, and very much it's a very inspiring show towards the end, which we could talk about at the end of this interview. But I've been doing all of those qualities of ingredients. I like to think in my interviews, and I did 5,000 interviews for ESPN.
And how many interviews did you do for HBO? Because you did the
I did some things for HBO. I actually was at USA Network first. I did some things for HBO, but mostly, like I did a series on Showtime for about Wilt Chamberlain recently. But my first beginnings were USA Network before ESPN even blew up, and before it was even ESPN as we know it now. It was just a fledgling network. I did 2 runs at ESPN. I did one as far back as 1978, if you can believe it. And then, of course, parts of 4 different decades throughout, from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. I did all kinds of stuff. And so really, it goes back even before HBO, before ESPN. It goes back to USA Network. I remember doing my first shows, and this is true, for the early ESPN days, when it was owned by Getty Oil. We did interviews in the parking lot at the US Open. Whoever walked up, we would interview. I had no research or clips or anything like that. And it really taught me a lot about, it cut my teeth really on interviewing. I remember he had John McEnroe sat in with me for an hour just because he felt like doing it. And he was in the parking lot in the hot sun for an hour talking about his life. It was great. And that's really what started me off.
Tough question, but what's one of your favorite 1 or 2 interviews you've done? I know you've done thousands.
It is tough, but I can probably put it in a category. The most interesting probably figure I'd ever been around was either Wilt Chamberlain or Jim Valvano, Jimmy V. Jimmy V he was an interviewer's dream. But Wilt was a real character too. He was a true eccentric. He loved being Wilt Chamberlain. A lot of big people don't necessarily feel comfortable in their own skin. He did. And he would tell me a story about how he water skied at 150 miles an hour. He would drive cross country on a whim. Within a day and a half, he would do it. He was a real character. But one time, this is way at the beginning of my career, I saw him in a parking lot in the Santa Monica restaurant called Michael's, and he was in a white Rolls Royce, about $200,000 or $300,000 car. Giant dogs in the back seat, a beautiful blonde in the front seat. And there he is behind the steering wheel, and he's got silver and purple silk jumpsuit with a burgundy beret, a lemon-lined feather coming out of the beret. He's got puka shells. He's got neon belts. He's got an African walking stick, no shoes. Puts it up against the steering wheel. He's 7'2", 330 or 40 pounds. I said, Wilt Chamberlain, I can't believe I'm running into you now. Can you do my show? With all that, he goes, well, I'm trying to keep a low profile. So I thought that was hysterical with all the stuff that he was wearing.
Yeah.
He was trying to keep a low profile. But Wilt did the show many times. Yeah. And Wilt was one of my all-time favorite guests. Also Barkley, of course, and people like that. And I'll tell you a very quick, funny story. In 1 year, I was in Houston interviewing Barkley and Olajuwon. And I said, Hakeem is a quiet, soft-spoken guy, speaks 5 languages, very erudite, very religious. And I said, Hakeem and Charles, here's an offbeat opening question. Do you believe you're going to heaven? And Olajuwon thought for a second, and he very eloquently said, well, I believe that my service to God is pure and consistent, and it comes from the spirit of my soul and the goodness for which I bring to all mankind. Yes, I believe I will go to heaven. Yes, thank you very much. I said, how about you, Charles? Are you going to heaven? He said, I don't know, but it's definitely going to be a close vote.
What a great story.
I mean, what a great answer. I have stories like that throughout my live show, music, sports clips, rare storytelling. And I love doing it. And I'm telling you, if the folks who are watching this show do want to get to contact me, just go to royfirestone.com and we'll have a conversation. Maybe I can come and do the show for you guys, you know?
Sounds fantastic. So you've many years of interviewing. What's a tip you could give somebody that's listening that wants to be a podcaster, TV show host, or interviewer?
Well, first of all, never write a question down. I really believe. I mean, you might want to write a word to remind you to ask about a certain thing. But if you write a question down, you get locked into looking down at the question and you're not listening to what the person is saying. So I never wrote a question out. I would try to remain curious. And I always repeat the word why. You know, da 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 da. My father, why? Because he da 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 da. But why? And then it stretches out the word why. Be curious. Be interested. Let me turn this off. Excuse me 1 second.
No worries.
Sorry about that. I got to turn the phone off. I didn't know it was on.
You're a popular guy. That's important.
I always want to be curious. I always want to use the word why. And I also love people. And I think you cannot do a good podcast if you aren't interested or invested in people. And I think that was the secret for me doing over 5,000 interviews. And I always felt as though I grew into it. I don't think I was a particularly great interviewer when I first started out, but I think you learn a rhythm, you learn what's interesting. Everybody has a story. Everybody's story has to be brought out. That's your job. And, you know, I really do think this. I think that my TV show, Up Close, and before that, Sports Look, was the first real kind of podcasty kind of show, because it wasn't just about who are the Bengals playing this week. It was, what was your father like growing? You know, it was a stretch out show. I don't think we see it anymore. We got a lot of people yelling at each other, which is not, to me, the best television, but apparently it sells. I'm not knocking anybody. God bless them all if they want to make a living, but that's not my style. My style was to really get into the athlete and to learn about them and to tell their story. And I'm very proud of it. I really am. And I could tell you that over the years, you know, doing Jerry Maguire, for example, people have reminded me about, I made somebody cry. We only had out of 5,000, maybe 15 people cried in the history of the show, but people only remember the tears, but they also remember the reality, the vital quality of that interview and what it revealed about one of their favorite players. And I'm proud of that. And I do believe that over the years, we put on a lot of good television. As I said, thousands and thousands of guests and hours. I have about 3,000 of my shows in storage right now of the 5,000. Wow. And I'm transferring some to digital because they're getting older, but they're like my children. They really are.
Your passion. Yeah, it's something that you can keep forever. And it's interesting. You talk about the why in people. You're right. It's all about people. Because when I listened to your show with my dad, we learned something about Olajuwon, Ali, Tyson, that other people weren't asking. Why do you want to be a champion? You asked the deeper, you know, how is it to be fatherless, or something that was personal but was important for us to learn. I appreciate that. How did you do interviews from political to entertaining to sports? They're all different people.
Well,
in a sense.
I'll tell you, you know, one of my most amazing opportunities that I had as an interview was interviewing Richard Nixon. I think Nixon himself told me that he only did 6 interviews after Watergate on TV, and I was one of them. But he wanted to talk baseball, and we did the entire show about baseball. But I slipped in a couple of Watergate questions about forgiveness and Pete Rose and should he be forgiven, et cetera. And Nixon was very adamant. He said he believed that Rose belonged in the Hall of Fame. This is the mid-90s.
Wow.
And I'll tell you a very quick, funny story too. I was not a big Nixon person, to be honest with you, and neither was my family. But we were doing great together in the interview because we were talking baseball, and he loved talking baseball, and he liked me, and I did like him in the interview. We had a good time. So for some reason, I said, Mr. President, I have to say this, but when I was a kid, 15 years old, at the Republican National Convention in Miami Beach, this is 1972, which is 52 or 3 years ago, my friend and I threw a rocket your limousine. I don't know why I said this. So Nixon looks at me and he goes, well, I guess you're pardoned too. So that was his comeback line, which was hysterical. And also, I did the same thing with my father. I said, Dad, you're not going to believe it. I just interviewed Richard Nixon. And Nixon had just said some great things, but I didn't tell my father. He goes, Nixon is a bum. He's a criminal. He belongs in prison. I said, yeah, but he said some nice things about you in my interview. He goes, but he did a lot of good things too. It was like the pipe thing. It was just all over again.
I love to meet your dad. What a great attitude.
It was great.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So how you did those politicians, entertainers, and sports, you found a passion, like with Nixon was baseball or something else, where you didn't have to go, where they weren't uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing, I think sports is a conduit to people. I think there's two things in life I think bring people together. I really do that. Doesn't matter what your politics are, left or right or center or independent, whatever you are. If you talk sports, it's undeniable who won and lost. Now you can talk about the plays in the game, but you have to admit that the other person, whatever his political leanings would be, is either rooting for the right team because their team won. Sports brings people together. The other thing is dogs. Dogs. I believe if you talk about people and their dogs, politics melts away. People want to talk about why they love their dog. And I have a piece in the show, my live show, called What My Dog Taught Me About Life. And for those who are watching, if you want to go on YouTube, you can see it. What My Dog Taught Me About Life, Roy Firestone. And I perform it live, and people are tearing up because it's a beautiful piece about the simplicity of a dog's life and how a dog looks at life and how maybe we should all look at life, get along with the cat next door, no pun intended. And without any rage. My dog never had any rage towards cats, which I thought were. So I do that piece in the show, and I've said I do the Beatles piece. I do a whole piece about respect for each other. It's an inspiring show. It's no politics in my show for sure, but it's an entertaining show, and I think ultimately it's very uplifting.
So who's somebody you've not interviewed? Who is that, and why would you want to interview them?
Well, I didn't get a chance to interview LeBron. He came in after me. I think his story is unbelievable. The poverty in Akron. I think he would be one. Steph Curry would be another guy that I had. If I could speak Japanese, I'd love to have Otani. Someday maybe he will speak in English. Those are a couple of players, 3 or 4 players that I would love to have had. I had Tiger Woods, but he was very young when he did my show. He was just a kid. But I would love to talk about his life. He's been very reluctant to do a lot of long-form interviews, but he's a guy who I have great respect for, obviously, and he's had a lot of ups and downs. Some of it's self-imposed, but I mean, he's another guy that I would have liked to have had. But I just think that I just had so many opportunities. I'm playing with the house chips now, Steve. I love the fact that I got a chance to do all of it before the media really changed. It became about clicks and internet digital hits instead of just listening to what someone has to say. And again, it is what it is. But I think there's part of it. We've lost something in correspondence and conversation, which is what my show is about.
Yeah, I love that because that's what I do. What we're doing today, we're just conversing, telling stories. I think that's to this day, I think it's still entertaining.
Absolutely.
So, in another tip that I'd love for you to give with all your experience. So when you do an interview, let's use the Mike Tyson or anybody you interviewed. What's your goal with the audience when they're listening to your interview?
Always the same thing. Can you find something that the audience didn't know about this person? Let me give you an example. I did a piece. I've written 4 books too, and today is Neil Diamond's 83rd birthday, as I mentioned before. And people don't know this, but he wanted to be an actor in the early 70s. And there was a movie called Lenny about the story of Lenny Bruce, starring Dustin Hoffman as Lenny. He auditioned to be Lenny Bruce. Neil Diamond did. And he didn't get it. And he was devastated because he really worked at it. He practiced for it. He thought, and he had done The Jazz Singer. So it was, he had some acting chops. Neil Diamond now, who has sold hundreds of millions of records, he was so despondent. He went back to wherever he was living and he buried himself for 4 months into a room and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and honed it and kept honing it and working on it. And he came up with a song called I Am, I Said. And he wrote that in response to getting rejected for the movie Lenny. And it turned out to be probably his signature tune.
Mm-hmm.
That's an example of the kind of thing I'd like to do in interviews, is tell people something they didn't know about a guest that they never knew before. And I will say that that was always the most satisfying part, is to find something in the journey of it, doing an interview that revealed something of those people that you didn't know. That's it.
Great tips. And I'm going to use them, write them down. Well, we're coming out of the end. We're about 35 minutes in. I want to get to Ali because he's iconic. He's the only sports guy or few that are sports champion, political, and an entertainer all in one. Am I correct on that?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I go back since I was a teenager with Muhammad Ali. I grew up on Miami Beach, Florida, where the gym was, where he trained for Sonny Liston and Joe Frazier and all these. And so I knew him as a kid. And anyway, it turned out my very first TV interview, this is before the Up Close series in Miami, where I was anchoring, was with Muhammad Ali. So we went to, we followed him around for a week doing interviews, and we were doing like one of those 60-minute kind of pieces. And we went to a nursing home in South Beach, Florida. And there's probably about 200 elderly people well into their high 90s. And one person was 107. And Ali had just beaten Frazier, Thrilla in Manila. He walks into the room, and there's about 100 elderly people, 200, something like that. I'm the greatest, I'm fast, I'll whoop Joe Frazier, what is my name? And they were shocked, these people. They had no idea who this guy was. Finally, an old lady goes, aren't you Cassius Clay? And I went, oh my God, it's not Cassius Clay. Anyway, so he goes to another room. And, I think you've seen this story, but I do this in my show. And he goes into another room, and he sees an elderly black man in a wheelchair. And Ali walks up and he goes, hey, old man, do you know who I am? Old man didn't respond. Says it again. Hey, old man, what's my name? Because Ali thought he was going to say you. And the old man didn't say anything. So Ali figured this man, who was about 97 or 98 years old, didn't really hear well or gave up, and which he kind of did. I mean, he really didn't spend a lot of time with other people. Ali starts walking back with his entourage. As he's walking back, I see this old man in the wheelchair take that chair and turn it towards Ali. And like a light bulb went off in his head. Suddenly he summoned all his memory. And he said, hey. And Ali went, hey, what? Hey, I know who you are. And Ali said, you know who I am? Who am I? He goes, you are the champ. You are the greatest. Can't nobody whoop the champ. Do you know I waited my whole life to meet the champ? I'm a big boxing fan. I waited my whole life. I tell everybody in my family, I want to meet the champ. I want to meet the champ. They're all dead now. But I waited my whole life to meet the champ, and now my dream came true. And I'm so proud and so happy. Can't nobody do wrong if you're the champ. I love you. And now I'm telling you, people are crying, right? So Ali goes back to this guy. He goes, you right. I am the champ. And now tell everybody in this room, what is my name? And the old man looked up and he said, Joe Louis.
Oh,
everybody in the room is like shocked. And they started to correct the old man. Hey, old man, that ain't Joe Louis. You know who? And Ali stopped them. Ali stopped them. And he said this, and I'll never forget it, Steve. He said, how dare you correct an old man? Don't you ever correct an old man. His whole life, all he ever want to do is put food on his babies. That don't make him great, but it makes him good. And no good man should ever, ever go without dignity or letting his dream come true. So he said this, and then I'll never forget this, what he said. And if that man thought the greatest of all time was Joe Louis, then tonight, my name is Joe Louis. And wow, what a beautiful thing that was. And I realized, and you saw that clip earlier when I say at the end of my piece, how far you go in life depends upon your ability to be tender with the young and patient with the old and those who strive, because someday in your life, you'll have been all of those things yourself. And Ali understood that. He understood uplifting people, This is what we need more than anything else in this country and all over the world. We need to find a way to uplift, not put people down, not to demean people or bully people, but to uplift one another and make people feel good about who they are in this very short time we have on this planet. Because in the ultimate end of the discussion, what Maya Angelou also said is, people will forget what you do, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And that's what Ali left with me. And that piece is in the show too. And I do want people to know that I think feeling about other people, good feelings about other people, whether it's talking about dogs or sports, is really the essence of what my show is about. And it's also entertaining, I like to think, and musical, funny, very funny. But that's why I love doing the show. It's part of who I am. And I've been doing hundreds. I've done over 2,000 shows in the last 20, 25 years. And I love doing it.
You're making such an impact. You are a servant's heart. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Steve. Appreciate that.
Because you're so humble. I love, but you're entertaining, but you're taking these incredible stories and sharing with the world to bring them peace.
I appreciate that. And I always, I've written 4 books too. Not the books, but they're also on my website. And I tell stories about this all the time. I was on Dan Patrick's show and he was just asking me, just lay a story, just tell us stories. And the one thing that I had in doing 5,000 shows is I got left with a lot of stories and memories and experiences. I'm the luckiest guy who's ever been in this business. I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, other people made more money. A lot of people have been on the air maybe longer, but no one had more fun than me. And no one ever really had more opportunities to meet all the greats in sports and in life than I did.
You're leaving a great legacy. Your movie credits are going to be, when that time comes, are going to be powerful. I appreciate you. Well, I thank you for being on again. Maybe down the road we have you back, talk more about
I would
the
love to do
show.
it. And let me just one more time, if people do want to get a hold of me, whether it's just to contact me or maybe bring me in to do my show, our budget, the budget they may have, might be flexible with it. We'll see. Some corporations have a pretty good budget, but they can go to royfirestone.com. And there's contact information there if you want to contact me personally or through my management. And I love doing this show, and I think it's unique. I don't think anyone's doing what I do. I'm not a straight stand-up. I'm not a straight singer. I do a little of everything, and I've always loved doing it. And I hope for the people who are watching who might be interested, I'd love to do it for you folks too.
Well, let's do that. Reach out to him. I want to thank you all for watching this show. Don't forget my TV show, Together We Serve, 2 p.m. on Pacific time on Fridays, 5 p.m. Eastern. And our podcast swag is available. And I'll look and see for you guys on our next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart.